Schaerlaeckens interview with one of the greatest Dutch pigeon fanciers champion. When I asked the Dutch champion Staff Ducerduien, a heavy smoker and alcohol was his favorite drink, if he had any hobbies other than smoking and drinking, he answered, "Pigeons and girls." I asked him that question when he was 90 years old, and he had just come back from hunting. No one has ever seen him not smoking, and no one has ever seen him wear glasses. The name of Ducerduien does not ring like Harden, Delbar, Van der Weggen, Cattris, Van Brewen and so on, and that's good. He does not belong to that category. He was better, by far the best long-distance racer ever in Holland and Belgium. He has won a record number of first prizes in the national races, 14 or so, and he has won a record number of cars. I remember the interview I had with him quite well, as I had to write a story about him for a Japanese who wanted 10 birds from him. That was a hard time for me. In the first place, he refused to write a pedigree and the Japanese wanted one. I will never forget Ducerduien's words, "What does this Japanese guy want, good birds or a good pedigree?" I do not feel like writing a pedigree, as I can write on it what I want to write. The other problem I had with Ducerduien was the price he charges for his birds, which was $50 per bird. And my Japanese friend did not want such birds too cheap, so no good was the way he thought. I told Mr. Ducerduien it was no problem if he charges more for babies off of his best birds, but he refused to raise the price. Poor me. The trip to Ducerduien's was long. I always charge my clients 10%. The visit cost me a whole day, half a tank of gas and 10 birds for $50 each meant my commission was $50, so the whole deal cost me money. Still, I have never regretted that day. I learned a lot from my visit, and I considered it a privilege getting to know Staff Ducerduien personally. I will tell you why, and for that we have to go back into history, to the 50s. Famous. I was a child in the early 50s, and the world was quite different then. In those days, the little town of Tilburg counted no less than 1,800 fanciers. All my neighbors and all my uncles raced pigeons, and in Belgium, there were approximately 200,000 fanciers. There were 3 popular sports then in Holland and Belgium: soccer, cycling and pigeon sport. As for pigeon sport, there were just a few names everybody talked about in those days: Jansen, Clack, Louis van Loon, Huiskens van Riel, Delbar and Ducerduien. They all became world famous, except for Ducerduien. World famous means nothing, though. You can buy fame. But Ducerduien, being a simple farmer, has never thought about advertising or paying people to write about him. Moreover, he always refused to charge high prices for his bird. Which is not the way to build a name either. Especially foreigners do not think much of the quality of cheap birds. But in Europe, Ducerduien was already a star before the war. He was superior in the years after, and he is still a real big shot, whereas some of the other names I mentioned are already history. There is a Belgian saying, "Reaching the top is far easier than staying there." Ducerduien stayed at the top of the sport for more than half a century. It is from people like him we can learn. That's the reason for me to write this article. It is not only a tribute to an old-timer who feels young, but also a lesson we all can learn from the war. Before World War II, Ducerduien was already a household word in Dutch pigeon sport. He was feared at the long distance like no one else. Then the war broke out and the Germans confiscated Ducerduien's birds. For 5 years, it was impossible to race pigeons. But the first thing Ducerduien did when the war ended was to fill his lofts again. He went to Delbar and to a guy called Schaerlaeckens. He knew what he was doing. In the early 50s, his results were better than they had ever been. In both 1950 and 1951, he won first national Dax, about 700 miles. After those consecutive victories, nobody counted on winning until Ducerduien's clock had been opened. He won National Barcelona in 1979, several times he was champion of ZNB, South Holland, at the long distances, and in 1994, he won the first National Limoges. The question rises, who else in the whole world can boast of such a successful career over 70 years? Throughout the years, methods have changed, competitors were different, but Staff Doucerduien was still the man to beat. Being so successful over such a long time can lead to only one conclusion: this man knows what pigeon sport is all about. This man has gathered so much wisdom throughout the years from personal experience that the average fancier better listen when he opens his mouth. That's why we list some sage advice from Staff Doucerduien himself. The one and only Mr. Doucerduien, the 10 Commandments. 1. Keep everything simple. Believe in good birds and forget most of the rest. There are no secrets or methods to make birds fly faster in the pigeon sport. 2. Do not try to run before you can walk. The mistake of many fanciers, especially beginners, make is that they want too much too soon. 3. Forget all about names and strains. Names are made up by the fanciers themselves or their friends in the press. Strains do not exist. There are 2 kinds of birds, good ones and bad ones. Of the first category, there are too few, of the second too many. He started with Delbar blood, that's true. Delbar was a name and he had a strain. But that does not mean much, Doucerduien says. Delbar would have been just as successful with other birds. 4. Be hard. Do not keep birds because the grandfather was good or because it has cost a lot of money. Do not hesitate to eat expensive soup now and then. Keeping too many birds is deadly. It's a mistake of many people make after they had some successes and can sell birds. Numerous examples of maintaining a mass of birds show that it was the beginning of the end of a great career. The 90-year-old himself has seldom raced more than 6 birds. If they are good, it's enough. 5. Regularity is essential. Especially widowhood cocks do not like surprises. Always be there at the same time. Every day. Many methods are sound. One approach is real bad, to change it again and again. 6. When you race long distance, give a bird at least 2 years to mature. Most birds with real long distance blood are at their best at an older age. Long distance birds are different. The majority cannot win a decent prize at a short distance or as a baby. On the other hand, most good birds at a shorter distance may be unfit to handle the longer distances. 7. Never enter a good one-day bird in a 2-day race. Birds that have flown the 2-day races will never be good one-day bird again. They become too smart. They know there will be another day and will take it easy. 8. If you try to be a good racer without any medicine or a vet, just forget it. This has become impossible. On the other hand, if you think a vet can make you a champion, you will fail too. 9. Mate the best with the best, and forget the rest. 10. The loft is imperative for the condition of the bird. A loft is not good because it is beautiful. If you have ever had good results, you will know for the rest of your life that it is not the lofts that are to blame when the results are not as good anymore. It is you or the pigeons. Do not change a loft which has proven to be good. It has often happened in the past that successful fanciers replaced their simple loft with a fancy one and they found themselves to be average fanciers from then on. A well-known example is Schaerlaeckens van Riel. Doucerduien has not changed anything in his lofts for over 50 years. Oxygen is of vital importance. No medicine against respiratory problems can compare to oxygen. Black period. He had only one black period in his life. That was in the days after June 6, 1990, when all his breeders were stolen. 5 times a day or more, he went to his loft as he could not believe people could do this to each other. Fortunately, the thieves were caught, the birds recovered, but Doucerduien had suffered. Only his best friends know how much. Conclusion. Every reporter visiting Staff asks the same question: what is the secret to your incredible vitality at such an old age? Doucerduien's answer is simple: never sit still and try to get out in the open air as much as possible. Smoke at least 30 cigarettes a day. No one has ever seen Doucerduien without a roll you own in his mouth, And don't forget to have a few strong drinks every day. Thus far the story about a man who is famous in his own country and unknown abroad. The story about a man who has competed against the greatest names in history and who does not fear today's new generation. The story about a man who hates to write pedigrees. To him, they mean nothing. He is a lousy bookkeeper himself and never wrote down what his birds were off. It just does not matter to him. Superbirds may throw worthless babies, average racers may produce superbirds. The origin must be good, but origin has nothing to do with famous names or strains. All that matters are results. Many people value a bird higher when one of the ancestors was a good racer or originated from a fashionable loft. For Dusserduian, this is all bull, and 70 years of successful pigeon racing gives him a right to speak and us a reason to listen. As long as Dusserduian can race pigeons and hunt hares and pheasants, he does not need glasses. He is happy. Provided he can smoke his roll, your own cigarettes, and have his daily glasses of